This time, I want to share how simple it turned out to be to implement weapon switching for the character in Unity, and to add different animations for various weapon types, melee and ranged. To start, I wrote the source code. Each weapon is a scriptable object that describes the weapon. It includes details on all types of damage, attack range for hitbox calculations, usage requirements, scaling grades during upgrades, but what's key for us right now are these properties: sprite, hit animation, and projectile. The sprite is literally the weapon's sprite, which I animated. I'll show that in detail shortly. Hit animation is the name of the character's animation trigger to play at the start of an attack. Projectile is the name of the projectile for ranged weapons. After that was ready, I created the animations in the way I showed in one of the previous videos, using Meshi.ai and Blender. At this stage, 2 animations were enough for me, one for the stick and another for the slingshot. Then I moved to Unity. In the player object, I created a child object called weapon root, an empty transform. That's what I animated later on. Inside it, I added another object, a sprite renderer, where I temporarily placed the sprite for the first weapon. It's worth noting here that all weapon sprites have a common requirement. They must be at the same angle to avoid duplicating animations for each weapon individually. For the pivot point, I set it to the spot where the player holds it with their hand. Also, in the handle of each weapon, I made a cutout to give the impression that the player is gripping the weapon. Now we can move on to the animation. For this, I added the weapon root object's properties to the animator: position, rotation, and for some animations, scale too. Next came the meticulous work, synchronizing each frame of every character animation with the weapon's movement. However, Unity's animator is quite user-friendly, and I spent no more than a couple of hours animating the weapon. This only needs to be done once, and if all future weapon sprites are drawn at the same angle, no extra animations will be required. In the end, for the attack animations, I selected the frame where the player deals damage to the enemy, added an event to that frame, and assigned a function where the actual damage dealing occurs. For ranged weapons, this involves calling the projectile throw function. After that, the projectile handles the rest of the work. Once the animation work was done, the player needs a default weapon set. I didn't assign any since by default there's no weapon. In the player's script, you add a field of type weapon item called equipped weapon, along with a function to handle equipping the weapon. I created all possible weapon types as resources, so I can search for them in code and read the needed characteristics. That's basically it. I've collected all the code snippets I talked about in the video on my GitHub. Links to them are in the video description. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in what I'm doing, please subscribe. Next time, I'll share how much all the subscriptions I use cost me, including development tools and AI tools.